Thank you so much for coming. It's great to have you here, guys. This is a meetup that hasn't, and also the topic that hasn't been talked about a lot, because we host a lot of meetups in the startup scene, and there has been multiple different types of angles of how we approach one particular topic, but this one is something that we have left out for a longer time, and I think we should change that. My name is Marija, and I am one of the founding partners of a company called Helve. At Helve, we basically help companies like you, the state and private sector, larger players, to implement innovation cycles. So, in case you're after new business, automation, or process innovations, you call me. And then you probably also become a member of Latvian Venture and Private Equity Capital member, right?
Right. Good morning, my name is Bērziņš. I'm here as the one of co-host representative. I'm member of board of Latvian Venture Capital Association, but I'm also professional board member in various companies, also state-owned, and I used to work for large corporates, state-owned corporates as well. That's why I'm so interested in that topic, and I'm so happy that Helve initiated this, and the big challenge of Latvian corporates is to jump in and be fast in innovation process, and that's so cool that we will talk about this today a bit in detail.
Yeah, but before we maybe get into it, I wanted to kind of show a few slides that are, I think, important for us to understand the kind of the topicality of this particular event, and also the open innovation kind of angle in it. We have been hosting, so we're in this business for about 5 years. We started by, basically the first 2 years flew by just by educating companies here locally about why is it important to get themselves into innovation in the first place. So it was a very long sales cycle, and I think that only for the past 2 years we've been like really gearing up, and we see that there's traction from the market, and that not only the boards but also employees throughout the company are starting to realize that this is a topic that we should be discussing. This is a topic that we should not only be discussing but also doing something about it. And the times when closed off innovations and these communication loops that were kind of associated with that is long gone. And it has been gone for ages. But what we see here in the local market, and not talking about only Latvia, but also the Baltics in general, it's still the case that we are kind of used to use these kind of old and outdated rhythms, and there's only one kind of right pathway, while we are not really seeing what else is out there in the market. And I think that this time around in 2023, you cannot longer kind of be associated with one pathway only in regards to innovation. You really have to experiment, broaden your perspectives, and involve more and more stakeholders in the process. And this is kind of the full open innovation cycle model that we also work by. And I'm just gonna quickly take you through it. It usually starts when a company comes, for example, to us or any other type of company that does similar services, and we start by kind of putting the scope of the vectors of what we are aiming to achieve. What are the directions that we want to focus on? What are the problems? What's the market opportunity? And then we basically, do it via various methods and arrive to some kind of a strategic pathway. Then the next level, how these companies can also kind of come into the scene, is the strategic partnerships. And these strategic partnerships are usually already formed with startups. So either we aim for a pilot or for a POC. The directions and the goal usually is either to drive business growth by adding to new business and revenue, or automate or change something within your processes from the innovation perspective. And then once you kind of graduate the strategic partnership and you have kind of a sense that what a startup company is about, and you see how they operate, what's their end goal, and you start to maybe talk in the same language, you kind of move up to the ladder to the programs part, where you, as a company, start to host internal incubators for idea stage teams, then maybe move into investing in pre-seed and seed teams from the accelerator point of view, and also the sandbox model. And then there is this kind of holy grail that I think, at least for those that make sense, investing is something that we haven't talked about a lot. And there's only, a handful of companies who are doing this in the Baltic level, and 0 in Latvia, and this is the problem that we are trying to address at the moment. So investing in venture capital funds or adding a CVC, which is a corporate venture arm, is not happening at the moment. Let's just put it that way. And when it comes to local perspective, we're mostly here, which is kind of, let's maybe host a hackathon, but we don't really have kind of strategic point here, but we just probably, gonna do some kind of innovation activity and then see how can we write it off. But this is not the way you want to do it. And then a few companies are exploring the strategic partnership, which is, something already to discuss about. But the programs and the investing part is a wild, wild west, which is something we should change. Anyways, luckily we have someone who really knows what they are doing, or at least it seems so. So Karolis, please take the stand here. It's not your typical kind of company representative. They are a very state-controlled company from Lithuania, but operating in quite a few markets across Europe. One of the energy leaders who have been implementing the cycle that I was talking about, right, for years. And let's see what they have in stock, right? Okay, so round of applause for Karolis.
It's very nice that Marija said that someone knows about state companies that invest in VCs, because that's not me. I brought I know something. I brought also one of our gurus, who worked with actually drafting the LPA, very complex document, outlining the relationship between our fund and between our state-owned company, dear old Ignitis. So Ignitis is, as you know, so this is Roberto, sorry. So he's here. If you'll have any questions, about details about how a state company can invest in, or start investing, start exploring opportunities into investing or getting involved into VC activities, anything about the actual LPA, the contract, the details, so he will be your guy, and me too. So we'll stay, after the talks, after the event, and then we can discuss in more detail. But for now, a bit about Ignitis Group. So most of you, I asked a few of you if you know Ignitis. Most of you said that you do. Even Estonians do. So that's great. Because we work in Estonia, but we only have one customer, Lithuanian embassy there. So even, but we supply them with electricity. But we claim that we operate in Estonia too. So we actually operate in Lithuania. We are a historically state-owned monopoly Lithuanian energy company, responsible for gas, for electricity, and for electricity distribution infrastructure. So a pretty heavy, stuff. Recently, we've launched an IPO. A couple of years back, I think it was the largest IPO in the Baltics back then. And we've sort of went as a group, rebranded to Ignitis from Lietuvos Energia, Lithuanian Energy, and we are now under the umbrella of Ignitis Group. So this is me. I mentioned to someone we'll have a QR code, so that's to my LinkedIn, hopefully. And you should be able to access my LinkedIn if you have any questions. I post sometimes quite a bit about energy, stuff about news, energy innovation in Lithuania. So you can sort of scan and follow me as well. If you have any questions, then let's also talk. So let's start from the beginning, I guess. So yeah, this clicker doesn't work. But let's start from the beginning. So I've mentioned already this one. Our PR guys always ask to include this slide, so here it is. We are making the world energy smart, and how it all started, really, in our case. So this is also from our PR. Sorry for the disturbed graph, but basically this is for you to say that we operate in these markets, also Estonia, as mentioned, and we deliver all kinds of different services. So most of them are concentrated in Lithuania. We as an energy company supply electricity, supply gas. We oversee the whole distribution network of electricity in Lithuania, and we offer customers new or innovative sort of business models and solutions, such as e-mobility. So we are also the largest operator of EV charging infrastructure in Lithuania, and expanding further. And solar energy. We've launched this first platform in Lithuania where you can purchase a solar plant somewhere outside the city. So you live in an apartment, you don't have a roof or something like that, you can buy a part of a solar facility somewhere from a developer outside of the city, where it's built for ideal energy generation, ideal angle and so on. And you purchase that and you generate electricity somewhere else and you consume it or net your bill basically with your apartment. So that's a few of the projects that we were involved in as innovation team. We within Ignitis oversee the VC activity. This is one of our activities. Okay, so that's not all what we do. Myself and Roberta, so we have an innovation team of 10 people right now, which has been established in this state-owned company back in 2017, 2018. And in parallel, our VC activities have started back then. Open funding outlines only our VC activities, and we do lots of other stuff. We used to do quite a lot of, looking for ideas in the market, bringing them to this energy company, trying to conceptualize them. We did quite a lot of piloting in, limited conditions to minimize risk, and we tried to create new products, implement new technologies that would work in the energy sector. So we try to sort of create the energy tech ecosystem and at the same time bring them in and say, hey guys, work with us. Here's the data, here's our infrastructure. So we sort of try to create the synergies. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that, open funding activity in our case is not only a financial motivation, but we look, if it was only a financial motivation, we would never do that, I guess, because here we're sort of gambling with public money, with people's money, so that's quite the risky stuff. If it goes well, it's okay, then no one talks about it, you can brag about it a bit somewhere, but if it goes bad, you can imagine, what's the publicity going to be like when state-owned company is, gambling with the people's money and so on. And if you select the wrong sort of setup of your investment structure or of your investment activities, imagine if you invested in a company and someone finds that it's someone's cousin because it's a small country and stuff. So it can get very, very bad. So we decided to launch our open funding activities in a synergy of what we do within the team, within the innovations team. So we get lots of, our fund manager over these years from 2017 has screened thousands of companies with pitch decks, contacts. They're a call away from setting up a call with us, with any startup that operates anywhere in the energy sector. So we sort of try to create this really a synergy of motivating these companies and trying to work with them. So it may be not the best fit for investment, but it may be a good fit for working with the energy company, with us. So how it all started, we got a support from the Ministry of Finance, which is our main key stakeholder, state-owned company in Lithuania. So after IPO, it's 70% or something like that. And we got encouragement, expressed, our need. We've identified sort of same as Marija probably mentioned, same situation in Lithuania, that, you know, it's a very closed up sector. So it's historically state-owned, very large infrastructure, very bureaucratic sort of stuff, and no one wants to do any small type of, you know, very risky business, especially if you cannot very easily get involved in these activities. So we got the support, considering the global practice and importance of development, products and services. So we've established venture capital fund in 2017. And in 2020, we also did a bit of a strategy review. You know, we saw what worked, what didn't. We've updated the strategy, and we went on. So we've selected a form of tendering a fund manager for us. So we've tendered a fund manager. We are not ourselves anyhow involved directly in deciding which company to invest in. You know, we're not responsible for these decisions. We gave the money, we signed the LPA contract and the partnership group agreement with very strict rules where to invest locally, how many companies can invest in locally, nationally, you know, all these set of rules, and we let it fly, basically. So, you know, strategic areas of investment are mainly these. If you look closely, it's probably anything related to energy. So, you know, all of these areas are sort of related to energy. One maybe additional or not exactly related to energy is e-mobility. So it's related to energy anyways, but it's more of a transport. So we did with our first fund a focus on pre-seed, seed, and Series A investment. I think so we invested into these countries. Sorry again for this term grab, but I will explain in a bit more detail, you know, what this is. It's not a full map as well, but we have at least highlighted the areas where we invested, so you can guess. So we have a couple of investments in Estonia. We have a commitment to invest at least 30% of funds locally in Lithuania. So, you know, you get more of a support from government if you commit to investing here locally, for example. But we have some startups in Norway, Sweden, quite a bit of in UK, France, Switzerland, and one in Israel here. The one in Israel is H2 Pro. Some of you may have heard of it in the energy sector. So we've co-invested with Breakthrough Energies of Bill Gates with this one. But we have some other, you know, success stories really in our portfolio, such as company Elix. So they started, they create solutions for customer engagement in the energy sector. We brought them in. Now they also have an office in Lithuania, employ quite a bit of people as a support team, I guess, and they develop their solutions also in Lithuania. We ourselves used one of their solutions. We've recently created Energy Smart application, mobile application for energy analytics for people, and we've included some of their algorithms to that as well. Another success story, PV case, I don't know if you've heard of it, so that was a very niche sort of stuff. So they created an add-on for AutoCAD software for for doing the projects for large solar parks very easily. Yeah. So we've invested in this company when they were quite small, like 10 or 15 people, something like that. Now it's over 100 people, and the evaluation is much higher. We have some other success stories and very cool other stuff that has not realized maybe yet, but our period of investment has now ended, and now we're sort of in a holding phase and an exit phase. So we're expecting all these investments to be successfully sold in the next few upcoming years, and then we'll count the chickens, as they say. But now it looks so far so good. Our evaluation, so this is just a few companies I mentioned, examples that we work with. So we work with Helve, Video, a very nice company that we've used for creating our application. Fusebox, mentioned to someone, an Estonian tech sort of startup, very also niche energy related area, energy demand aggregation. It's very interesting for us too. So we're starting this activity, and we're very closely cooperating with them in Lithuania to launch it as well. A few others that we've used within our actual activities. So Thruster, Blue Hepta, we used as pilot projects for overhead power line inspection, utilizing visual identification and overhead lines inspection. And I think that's all from my side. Hopefully that was okay for introduction. And as I mentioned, if you want to discuss more, have questions about details of how we did it, I'm sure that we're going to discuss some of this in the discussion right now. But if you have some specifics about, writing up the LPA, getting approvals from ministries or something, Robert as well also be your guy here. So thank you, and have the nice rest of your day then.
So we're going to continue with the panel discussion as mentioned by Karolis. So Karolis, please take a seat. Today with us here we have also Andris Bērziņš, who is a partner at Change Ventures. Welcome. And lastly, we have Arın from 500 Emerging Europe, who is a general partner at a 70 million fund operating across CEE. Okay, great. Good to have you here. How are you feeling?
Awesome.
Great. Do we need to have these mics though? Or maybe we shouldn't?
You definitely will.
Okay, let's just leave it here. All right. Thank you so much, Karolis, for covering the topics. I think it was a pretty useful kind of intro to what we are going to talk about next. So we have here two active venture capital players actively investing not just in the Baltics, Arın here in emerging Europe, and then we have Karolis, who's kind of an active LP in the energy sector. And the goal for today's panel discussion is to kind of understand when it makes sense for a corporate partner to go into investing and when does it not. So let's start maybe by uncovering the value proposition. You guys are usually going to your LPs. Andris, Arın?
Yeah,
Go first, Andris, yes.
The value proposition that we sell to LPs. Yeah. So fundamentally, all venture funds are selling return on investment. So in the end, our primary goal is to return a very healthy multiple on the capital that the limited partners invest in the fund. And that's, I think, should be common for all VC funds. Then you can come to the question with some strategic investors as to whether there are additional goals that they want to put on the LPs and whether those general partners want to take on those goals and work with them. So in another context, you have a lot of funds established in the last few years that have specific goals around impact, sustainability, various other things. Same could be specific goals around certain industry development or support for the LPs. But fundamentally, in the end, everyone needs to return a very healthy financial return on the capital invested.
So yeah, as Andris said, I guess the number one thing is financial returns, obviously. And then for us, for example, like looking at the LP base, so we do have a bit of a wide LP base. So we have, I think now over like in this fund, 85 LPs now. So that makes it such that there are different types of LPs looking for different things, right? So we do have a lot of funds, government money across Europe, more like DFIs, like EBRD-IFC, corporates, let's say, family offices, third generation family members, all that sort of stuff. So they all have different sort of things that they're looking for on top of the financial returns. I would say, in terms of a lot of the public LPs that we have, typically what they want to do, obviously, is they're mandated to invest in their local regions, and they're sort of trying to put more investment into their local ecosystems. So that's one of the goals that they typically have. Other than that, the way that a lot of the corporates and sometimes more like public sector money works with us is they become LPs in the fund, try and learn the business, quote unquote, in the sense that they try to co-invest with us. So we've done co-investments with, I think, over like 10 LPs in the past as well, both in this fund and in the previous fund. And I guess something that's a bit maybe on top of that from our perspective, being a part of sort of the global 500 group. So let me give you a bit of a background on that as well. We're called 500 Emerging Europe because we're a separate fund investing across emerging Europe. But there are funds like us across Latam, MENA, Southeast Asia. So 500 is this US-based local organization that has different funds globally. So how it works with some of the LPs in terms of the value prop is they also want to invest in both other funds as LPs globally and also into other companies as well, both across different stages, different regions. So I think that's also one of the incentives that they have when they're investing with us.
I think that, for example, like Andris, for a fund like yours, mostly investing in the Baltics, when would it make sense for you to even maybe take a corporate LP? Like, would you even, evaluate it?
So, I mean, in principle, we're very happy to take corporate LPs as long as they sign the same LPA all the other LPs are signing, right? And one of the most important things that I think is difficult for some people in corporations to think about, Ignitis got over this obviously, was, you're effectively giving investment decision-making control to the GP. I think there's a perception that if we want to achieve strategic goals, then we should be helping direct where the investments are going. But there is fundamentally a very specific role that a general partner has in terms of identifying, securing, and making investments, which is a task that most corporates are not equipped to do. So we can talk about the CVC process as well. So many corporations that end up setting CVCs later regret it because they actually find it's much harder to do in-house than have someone who's professionally managing a fund that's not in-house. And so I think we're happy to take corporates, but then the question, I think, the big question is the general partner, the investor, agreeing to do certain things, limit their scope, for example, of investment. So in the case of Ignitis and Contrarian Ventures that you guys funded, Contrarian was an energy-focused fund, right? And so that fits very well with Ignitis focus and is a logical thing. And I think one of the most important thing for corporates to think about is, because I get a lot the question asked around, should Latvian corporates invest in venture capital funds, is the likelihood that tech, for example, will find the exact startups doing the exact innovations that they want to add to their business right here in Latvia or in the Baltics only is actually really low. That happenstance will happen, that exactly at that time, exactly that investor will find exactly those startups that will exactly fit all sorts of other strategic things they want to do. That likelihood is relatively low. So which is why Contrarian was investing also across Europe and Israel, and they were able to look at a much broader range of startups, and that makes a lot of sense because for that vertical focused investor, you want to be able to target a much broader range. So we're a generalist fund, so Change Ventures invests across all 3 Baltic states, but we invest in everything from edtech, robotics, to AI, to consumer, and so forth. And that's because we limit our geographic range, but not the vertical focus.
I think this kind of brings me back to the point that Karolis was raising in his presentation about them focusing on the Lithuanian market only for 30%. So how did you actually manage to do it? Because it's a really low number, right? It's not also, again, a typical kind of a move.
Yeah, so, I guess both energy sector startup or investing activity and VC activity back then was at a pretty low maturity stage, yeah. So we cannot compare ourselves obviously
that's why it feels like it's a win, right? It's like a total win, like going against all odds.
Yeah. So the good thing was that we agreed and we came over this border, to be able to invest more widely. So that definitely helped us and brought in very useful contacts, very useful company startup that we work with directly to this day. So I guess it takes time. But like coming to your first question, for us, like financial motivation was important, obviously. Yeah, so we were playing with like public money. Yeah, but we raised an expectation that it wasn't the primary thing, and I think from the corporate perspective, it's very much important that we got the opportunity to, in parallel, sort of raise and bring to a higher maturity the energy sector startup community, energy tech community. Because when we started, we experienced the same thing with our accelerator. We had an accelerator activity, and we couldn't find any good companies who could really be able to effectively participate in this activity in the energy sector, because we focused towards energy sector. Now, what we see is that many more companies actually have grown together with us. So when companies see the support, many of them make the needed decision to start the business or see the support at least, that, hey, this is supported not only by talks or organizing hackathons, because we used to do that as well. We don't do that anymore. But it's only supported by actual VC, by money. It's funded, it's supported by us. So financial motivation is obviously important, but our expectation was, if we lose some money, that's not good. If we don't lose any money, come out, net zero, say, then it's okay. It's fine. We wouldn't get much of anger, I guess, from the ministry or from someone. We could justify that by other values, such as creating synergies, raising the energy tech ecosystem, showing the leadership as the leading energy company, and raising the energy tech ecosystem and getting these corporations these synergies. So we could justify it by just that. However, we got some luck, and our fund value has grown quite largely as well. So it's a luck factor, but from the corporate side, I think it's very important, especially at this maturity stage, to have the right expectations, because especially if you're investing here locally.
So just to comment on that, so I don't think it's luck actually. It's good choice of fund manager, right? So and actually I would say it's essential that you keep the financial motivation very clean and upfront, because you will not attract a great fund investor by simply saying, well, it doesn't matter, you make money, you need to do strategic investments, because then it's not interesting for a good fund manager, because ultimately they also want to earn a return on their work, right? And that's the only way they do it. The only way to earn, above market returns is to earn carry, which means making great investments that return great returns. So I think it is important that is there, and what I think Ignitis did right was set up a structure where they could attract a good fund manager with a clear mandate, with the freedom to operate, that allowed them to then make successful investments.
Yeah. So what I mean by success, I think that you can correct me. There's like some kind of statistic or something that says that in order, not to lose money, you'd like to diversify into like 30, 35 companies and up, especially if you're investing at this level. We had 20, I think, overall. Some of them exited right now. So we had half of it, and it was successful. So we got a bit of lucky in the sense that we didn't invest as much, but we invested very sort of Yeah, so obviously the fund manager, Contrarian Ventures, they did a beautiful job, selecting. They've screened over the years, as I mentioned, thousands and thousands of companies. Some of them were not the best fit for investment, but
You ended up working with them.
but we ended up working with them, for example, or we used their solutions, or we at least talked with them, piloted something, bought some services from them. So I think that's important as well for companies.
So you mentioned you started out by kind of, maybe leaning more towards the CVC arm, and then kind of understood that, okay, this takes a lot more than us kind of, scoping the field, and then you turn to LP.
Yeah, I don't think we have ever considered like a CVC. I think it would be considered as quite risky stuff, especially back then, and that's why we've ended up tendering the fund manager, which was and is right now for the first fund, Contrarian Ventures, and this was our primary way to go. We wanted to be as transparent as possible, so it means losing the ability sometimes to, get effective control in the field. So we had the opportunity to write everything from our side in the LPA contract because pretty much 100% of funds of investments was ours. So it was our fund. We were pretty much the single LP in this one, and it turned out good. I think it's a good way to go, especially if you're considering something like that in Latvia.
And now you're gearing up for your second fund, right?
Yeah, so we're in the process.
And the process is a bit different.
Stages of tendering for the second fund. So we're going to be one of the LPs in the second fund. So we're looking more internationally. We're not committing right now to investing some specific amount or percentage into local companies locally. We're looking more broadly. So yeah, we're going to test out, I guess, a bit of a different structure right now. However, it's going to be a much larger fund, much larger investment. So we're looking larger funds as well who could, manage that. So that kind of money. Yeah, so.
Right. So maybe for those who are just starting to look into whether or not to go this route of becoming LPs and fund, Arın, Andris, perhaps we can take them through what would be like the minimum homework they should be doing before kind of going into this pathway.
So it depends on. I think the number one thing is obviously it depends on what they want, and they really need to sort of figure that out. As I said, a couple of different examples. Like we have LPs in the fund who are third generation, don't want to do the business anymore, want to diversify, looking into other things. So they're pretty much becoming family offices and managing money. So that's an entirely sort of different goal and mandate, and that sort of brings obviously a different mindset. We have more kind of like, I would say, strategic-ish kind of corporates as well that are looking to invest more within their certain kind of like verticals. And in that case, couple of things that worked. So what they ended up doing is they became LPs in our fund, plus a couple of other funds, maybe more vertical ones as well, globally as well. And then they had this sort of idea that they will reserve a certain amount of money in the next 5 to 10 years, let's say. So quite a big strategy to invest down the line with some of these funds in later stages and sort of put forward their strategic capabilities as a benefit to co-invest with some of the sort of leading funds globally. So you, in short, need to know what you're doing. So what's your strategy coming out? A lot of the failures typically that we've seen happen with people coming in and not really knowing what they're doing over the course of the next 5 years. And then they just become an LP in the fund, the champion within the corporate, leaves the job, and then it just becomes a financial return, like an asset that's sort of locked there, and that's it for the corporate. So I think it's much more about sort of strategic perspectives in terms of what you want to build, why you're becoming an LP.
Yeah, so I think for sure for corporates, the strategic questions should be high up, and I think the biggest way that in a venture fund relationship you can help that strategy is basically you have access to a team that's focused and looking at a broader set of opportunities, different kind of innovations than your internal corporate team might be looking at. And so it's important to build a relationship with them and have a process where you can learn, you can get access to contacts, you can broaden the corporate's network through this venture fund. So that's exactly what Ignitis was doing, and so I think in the case of some of these other LPs, you can leverage the venture fund as a connector effectively to a broader range of startups and innovation opportunities than you might as a corporate directly, right? So, and that's part of the reason to do this arm's length as an LPs, because a venture fund that has its own mandate is investing independently, may have a certain vertical or whatever focus criteria, but they're an independent investor. They can talk to teams, talk to startups about being an investor. They'll also have many conversations where they won't invest, but that set of information, if you're a significant LP in a fund, you can agree to have access to, obviously not all the confidential data, but understandings, learnings that team is generating. Because if there's a dedicated investment team looking at a certain industry or a certain space or certain trends, they will learn, and that's one of the key benefits that a corporate will be looking to bring in-house.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on top of that, so for example, with us, a lot of the LPs that are sort of quite bullish on this got access to a lot of different startups globally as well, from Southeast Asia to US, co-invested in later stages, even did some pre-IPO tickets to get some sort of access to working with some of these companies as well. So you can do all of that if you are mandated and you have that kind of mindset. So if you're strategically driven, I think it makes sense, especially, so with us, we are a generalist fund as well, and the sort of global operations is quite generalist as well. And an alternative route definitely is where, for example, with some funds, they have a much more, let's say they're only doing logistics and mobility, and then if you're obviously operating within that space, it makes much more sense for you guys, especially for an LP, especially if they're globally kind of focused. We've seen those kind of dynamics work quite well as well. So, and with us, I think a couple of other things that people were interested in, which are sort of side perks, I would say, is due to the global aspect, we have this program called Venture Unlocked. We have a couple of sort of others gatherings that we do globally as well. So they want access to that to be able to, take those courses, take part in some of those batches, etc. So I think for some of the LPs that also makes sense. Side person.
Get them involved in the ecosystem, and mingle around a bit. So in terms of the ticket sizes, so let's say that someone here decides today, hey, I should try it out. So what does it mean to actually join a fund? Like, from the financial, but also from kind of, how often are you guys talking with your LPs?
So the answer is it depends, of course. Depends on the size of the fund, and depends on the size of the commitment and the level of engagement you want with the general partners. So so let's say if we take Baltics-focused funds, so typical funds that are focused in this region are generally taking tickets from, $250,000 to $500,000 and up. The question may come up if you want a deeper relationship, as I said, access to the team, regular discussions around industries, trends. The GP might reasonably ask for you to make a bigger commitment in order to be a more significant LP. Plus, there is also, from the GP side, there is a certain risk in taking a corporate because, as I had said, the decision making may change. So you don't necessarily have guaranteed stability of the person on the other side you're dealing with, or close to guaranteed. And so it is reasonable for a GP to ask then a corporate to make a larger commitment, so that they have the reason to spend the extra effort to do that. But those are kind of the guidelines I give.
So yeah, I guess it depends on the size of the fund, as Andris said. Typically funds raise probably in nowadays with the current environment, it used to be probably every 3 years. People raise a new fund. Now it's probably going to be more like 4 to 5 years maybe. So every 4 to 5 years, people raise the funds. That's the time to get in. The fundraising process probably takes somewhere between a year to maybe even like 2.5 years in some cases as well. And then the funds are closed for those that don't know, so that the funds are not taking in any more money after that. And the typical sort of sizes are, I would say, probably from somewhere from 500K up to a couple million for some of the earliest funds.
Yeah, and just to sort of follow up on something Karolis said earlier, if you want a significant role in the fund, then it may make sense to be the biggest LP, the anchor LP, or even the only LP in the fund, and therefore have the ability to define the terms of, the basically the criteria on which the fund is making investments, right? So that it sort of depends on how much influence and impact you want to have via that investment.
Karolis, anything in your end?
No, nothing specific, I guess, but just coming to my previous point that also to consider that for corporates such as ours, sometimes risky to have too much control. So it's best to sometimes give the funds and expect we oversee the fund obviously, so we have. It wasn't just like that we gave out the funds and we just go do whatever. But so as I mentioned, we had a very complex LP that our team has worked with really a lot and has put a lot of work into it. But I think it has really defined the way that we went, defined our success, and So.
Yeah, so I guess the limited partnership form is very conducive to supporting that, in the sense that as a limited partner, the investor does not have the risk of being in control of this asset directly, and therefore having to consolidate or all sorts of other stuff like that. They're a limited partner. That by definition means limited control, or generally speaking, no control over the exact investments made, but in the LPA you can agree on the criteria according to which the fund is selecting investments, and then as long as that fund manager needs to then follow the criteria. And so that's really the question, is what are the investment criteria that the GP is using, and that's a match for the LP investor. But it is a very neat structure in the sense that then it doesn't place corporate risk on the investor due to specific investments.
All right, so my very last question would be then maybe about a bit broader perspective. So for the past few years, like the Baltic tech ecosystem from the startup and Visa point of view has grown quite a lot. But I have a feeling that not all the kind of innovation ecosystem stakeholders are doing their part. So what do you see from your end, like from here maybe talking with Andris and Karolis, more would corporates becoming active LPs or leaning towards forming their own CVCs would significantly kind of also drive the growth of the region in general, or should we just keep continuing what we're doing, raise money abroad, and just go with what we have?
Yeah, so I would say that corporates getting actively involved in backing venture funds would be a great thing in this region, especially if those funds are set up as normal fund structures, not weird non-market terms, in a way that is attracting
We have a thing for weird.
Exactly, in a way that's attracting good, solid fund managers with a mandate to look for great companies, not just in this region, maybe partly in this region, but also outside this region. That would bring in innovation, it would bring in contacts, it would help build up teams that would then potentially go on to raise further funds and strengthen the ecosystem.
I think from our perspective and our experience, what we've seen in these past years, it definitely helps. Obviously, I mean, the answer is yes. especially in sectors like ours, that used to be a monopoly historically. So, there was no motivation back in the days, no motivation, no rationale to even think of doing some kind of small risky business or something like that in the sector. It used to be very much centralized, very much centrally sort of controlled, and by getting involved in this fund, as I talked a bit about in my presentation, we saw the growth, we saw the maturity of the energy tech ecosystem has grown very, very much in Lithuania and the Baltics. The other regions that we've invested in, it's much more mature. So we found some cool companies, some good companies there as well that gave us the financial rationale for keep investing or gave the rationale for launching of the second fund. But we, as a corporate, see ourselves very much as the leader of the industry. And I would like to believe that other corporates in other countries should do the same because we are very open to opening up data, opening up infrastructure. We are cautious about it, especially in the current geopolitical situation. Yeah, especially we're very cautious of the security concerns and stuff. So we have all the checkups and due diligence obviously in place, but we are also trying to be very open and inviting, and we talk with anyone who gives us a call or writes us an email. We try to really involve and accept anyone from our even a pre-seed company is just a guy with an idea wanting a consultation. They find us on LinkedIn or somewhere, and they find out that we have innovations team. So they see us as a primary contact. They come to us. We discuss. So I think we've really gave a push or at least a bit accelerated or opened up this area of energy tech. So hopefully that other corporates, obviously if we did it, then anyone can do it. Yeah. Especially in the energy sector, when the past year we had the energy crisis, lots of companies have experienced windfall profits and a lot of it, especially in the energy sector. So energy companies now have lots of money that they did not expect, which I think they could find a very good justifications, financial or ROI wise, and as well as supporting the local infrastructure, bringing it to a higher maturity. They can find lots of justification to use those windfall profits for that kind of activity more than ever. So.
All right, so the bottom line is that we should start investing. We are already 5 years kind of late, maybe even 10 years late. So that brings us to a really speedy development that is needed. Perhaps we have some questions from the audience. Questions? All right, no questions, but we have an answer. That's a bit more exciting. Can I, thank you so much, panelists, for your time. Yeah, so we wanted to do kind of a quick, maybe, let's call it a debrief with Raimons and Martin here. So I think, guys, you can maybe have this fireside chat, right? Just the two of you, right? No need for me.
Good. I don't know. It was a very provocative question. I would like that you stay there, but...
Okay. I can stay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll start with very, very short feeling summary what I got from the discussion. And maybe that could help as an intro for you, Raimons, because what we got as the main clear message, leadership, this is the need what could achieve much more energy to start kind of actions, to look for opportunities, and a leadership of all corporate leaders, of CEOs would be needed to go forward. Maybe also leadership of politicians. So that's one, and it goes to ambition. ambition to be international and ahead of the competitors, right? So right structure, how we create innovation. That was also a very clear message that if you keep innovation under one of your departments, but you are not going to create structure which allows to managers fulfill themselves with trust and in the same time with freedom where to invest, why invest, and how to deliver. And finally, limiting aspects. What I got from the discussions is that if there is fear to lose control, it creates incredibly high level limit to go forward with innovation. So that's kind of summary from I got from the discussion. Maybe from your side, how you see potential from all?
Yes, while I was listening, I was trying to figure out what we have already there and what's missing. So there is several puzzles or pieces of puzzle which are already there. There is good leader, for example, in the technical university, who is keen to move forward. There is push from government or financial institutions to invest in innovation. And there is clearly an ongoing process already for 5 years where we discuss with state companies, with large companies about how to involve them in innovation. And there is coming next, how it's in English, it's
Innovation tenders?
now in October there will be next meeting.
The event for
Yes.
the corporates.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that what we could do, as there is everything in place, like all the pieces are there. What we can do is this one. I would be very glad to talk and to have a discussion with CEOs of large companies, of state-owned companies, to discuss who of them is ready to participate in establishing innovation fund or as TED. They already have their own activities in this field, so whether there is cooperation possibilities. And secondly, it means that till January, till June, we could have a discussion whether who are ready, and then in October, not have another one discussion about possibilities, but actually already put on table legal structure, how it could work, how government can free up owners and management of these companies from responsibility of probably at the beginning stage investing in very risky enterprise, how to set up a management team, how to attract additional funding from public sector, and how these all elements integrate with, because there is ongoing process not only with the universities and companies. There is an establishment process, incubation program. There is next period's program for R&D. There is public money in R&D. And these elements just need to be adjusted now around one goal. So from my perspective, there is good opportunity in October to actually agree, not only discuss, but agree on structure, how this can be done in our case.
So we've been working with state-owned companies, but also with private companies on various innovation activities for 5 years now. We haven't moved much, so I think that you came in later. But what I was kind of raising awareness to is that all of these companies that are probably what we are discussing, Lithuanian, Sandals Vehicles, etc., they are still in for the past few years, they haven't moved an inch between the ideation part and then maybe starting to interact with startups from the strategic point of view when it comes to pilots and POCs. So I don't really see how we can, kind of speed this process till July and start investing
But the point is,
soon.
the point is that everybody in both in public sector and in companies, still think that it will go away.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's just like a weather. It's the rain and that's it. I think that it is possible. It is possible, again, and Martin mentioned it's a question of leadership. And what we can do, I can offer my time and have a discussion with CEOs, and actually not to, again, the problem is that we are talking about possible systems and we just stop at that. From our perspective, if we can identify biggest problems, like for example, what was named always is that state companies are not able to invest in risky enterprises because then they will be sacked. I can guarantee none of managements of companies have been sacked for investing in risky projects. They have been projects which are not in line with law, but it's not a question of risky or startup investments. So this is excused. And so what we can do, if we set up the structure which companies and us agree that it is go for, the government of course can free up, as I said, owner and the management with decision saying that guys, investing in this fund is legal, point. And I think it's possible till October. If it's not possible till October, I think it's not possible at all. Then we have to change everything, including me.
Just before, quickly, Martin, okay, let's discuss this later. Another thing that we see in the market is that there have been, some kind of strategic developments happening in few of those companies, right? It's not like we haven't tried anything at all. So there has been some kind of activity. But what it really goes down to is that you just try one thing and then you do not succeed, and then you just, okay, it's not worth it to, move further. But what this really is about, and what innovation essentially is about, it's about following through your failures and also, embracing the failures, but also then, having this one home run that kind of brings back the whole investment. And it's about a very long marathon done in sprints. And it's, obviously about the mindset for these companies, which is something that, it's the most crucial thing to do. And do our CEOs have this mindset at the moment? If they don't, then we're...
Yes, and the point is that why I'm talking about these puzzles. When we talk with Prime Minister, he's completely open to this. He's completely open to investments in risky, innovative businesses. When we talk to my minister, she says that yes, we are ready. As I said, talk with Ritek University rector, he's open. Let's speak with each of CEOs, they will say yes. The problem is that each of these players just have limited scope of time which they can dedicate, and secondly, they have limited overview of what's going on, so they can't talk to each other all the time. And that's most probably our only goal as a ministry, to adjust this understanding that there is possibility, and as you said, and then run it as a marathon, not as a one, looking for Nokia or whatever. It's marathon. We have to agree on this one. So we have to think about fund, not 10,000 euros or probably 100,000, but we have to talk about funding 25 million in, let's say, 5 years. This is the scope which we have to cover. And as I said, why I think it's possible, there is not only corporates, banks clearly know that they have to have an answer how they are helping Latvian economy. Swedish banks completely clearly know that in Sweden they are investing in risky activities in funds. So they have in their structures, they have knowledge about this one. Public sector clearly wants to invest, and there is private individuals too who are already investing in risky business in early stages. So yes, there is all the players and this leadership part, and it is a question, but I think that there is no possibility for me to sit there and answer that we will be looking for leadership. It's Ministry of Finance. I don't see any other option.
I could add only two layers. One layer is that Ministry of Economy could be a leader to organize regular process which supervises the progress, whether there are activity done after 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months, and that's the one thing which at the moment is lacking. And second thing is also very clear commitment from whether Minister of Economy or Prime Minister or government that we understand we should go forward with creating funds which we are giving to professionals to push forward such kind of innovative investment. That's like a message every month should be declared very clearly to the each other, to the politicians in parliament and then also to the community, because otherwise there will be no trust that such kind of priority is on the table. So.
That's why I mentioned this June and October. As I said, if we can't do this in system, there is no problem in time frames. There is nothing to write very long documents. So there is no, in this sense, there is no need for 2 years or whatever.
Sounds good. So I'll see you in June.
Yeah, like earlier, not in June.
Okay.
It'll be too
Next
late.
week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next week. Thank you so much for coming over. I hope you enjoy.